أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الفاتحة.
اللهم صل على کربلا کی بن میں کوئی قافلہ لوٹا گیا، اے عزیزو خاندان مصطفیٰ لوٹا گیا۔ ہوتی ہے ماں کو تمنا نوجوان دلہا بنے، لیلا کی یہ ارمان جا بجا لوٹا گیا۔ فاطمہ کی بیٹیوں کا آسرا عباس تھے، زینب و کلثوم کا وہ آسرا لوٹا گیا۔ عصر عاشوراں کو تو بچے آتش سے مر گئے، نہر پر پیاسوں کے دل کا مدعا لوٹا گیا۔ 11ویں شب روشنی دے کی تو زینب نے کہا، ظالموں لوٹو گے اب کیا، گربرا لوٹا گیا۔ یا خدا لوٹا نہ جائے کوئی کنبہ اس طرح، جس طرح زہرا کا کنبہ جا بجا لوٹا گیا۔ کربلا کے بن میں کوئی قافلہ لوٹا گیا۔ صلوات بر محمد۔
आवाज़ बुलंद सलवात
اللهم صل على محمد. ما شاء الله لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته. ثم الصلاة والسلام وتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني الهاشمي الذي سمي في السماوات بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الهداة المهديين، سيما أولهم أمير المؤمنين وآخرهم بقية الله في الأراضين، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقتلتهم وغاسب حقوقهم ومنكري فضائلهم ملعونين. أما بعد, for the happiness of Hazrat Zahra Mirziyah, for the enlightenment to the graves of your marhumin, of the graves of the Shahadat, ulama and siddiqeen, for the safety of the followers of Ahlul Bayt around the world, and for the safety and the hastening of the reappearance of Hazrat Baqiyatullah al-A'zam arwahun al-Fida, please recite your loudest salawat. We have gathered in order to commemorate the istishhad of Imam al-Baqir salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The one that is known as Baqir, the one that splits what? Ilm. The individual that split knowledge, that secret knowledge of Ahlul Bayt, that knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and allowed it to be understood on a huge scale. Whereas up until this point, the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt was restricted to only a few individuals. But what Imam al-Baqir was able to do was spread that knowledge. One, because of the political situation. Bani Umayyah were going out, Bani al-Abbas were coming in, there were wars going on. And so their attention was diverted away from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam for a short while. Now, I don't want to go too much into various stories about the life of the Imam, but I want to focus on a specific hadith from the Imam and then extrapolate that into our own lives and draw parallels in how it is that we can achieve what the Imam alayhi salam is saying. So in this particular narration, and it's especially pertinent because in the month of the Hijjah, the month that we are passing through, there are a number of different events, some 27 events that are related to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. In this month is the month of the wedding anniversary of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidah Fatima. Within this month is the month where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the ayah of wilayah. So it is in this month that Amir al-Mu'mineen gave his ring in the state of ruqu. It is in this month that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Surah al-Dahr, Surah al-Insan. So it's in this month that Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam gave away their food for 3 days to those that were needy coming to their door. It is in this month that the Holy Prophet narrated to Amir al-Mu'mineen Dua Sabah. It is in this month that Shaqqul Qamar, the splitting of the moon happened. It is in this month that the Mubahala happened. It is in this month that Sadd al-Abwab happened. The order of Allah came that all the doors to the masjid must be closed except for the door of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Only his door is the one that can open out into the masjid. It is as if 27 different events, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to tell us that this is the month of Wilaya. Ghadir is in this month. Mubahala is in this month. All of this goes around that reality of the hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And especially the first 10 nights. وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ. In Surah Al-Fajr when we talk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, by the dawn and by those 10 nights. And Mufassirin have said that it could be 3 different possibilities. The first possibility could be the last 10 nights of Shahr Ramadan. Or it could be the first 10 nights of Muharram. Or it could be the first 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah that Allah is swearing by. Others have said it's probably all 3 of these different possibilities, because there are certain portals towards the rizq, a specific rizq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is available to the abd in these particular months. And this is why, whether or not, I don't know if we've pondered over it, but this salah that we recite after Salat al-Maghrib, that 2 rak'ah that we have, where we recite that particular ayah, وَوَعَدْنَا مُوسَى 30 لَيْلَةً, that Musa, we had a promise with Musa, a covenant with Musa for 30 nights, and we increased it. Now, what is the significance? Why Musa alayhi salam? What is being said? From it, the Urafah, they say, these special nights, these ayyamullah, these days of God, the days of Shahadat, the days of Wiladat, all these events that are related to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and especially things like Shahr Ramadan, Muharram, and these 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah, it requires an individual to do what Musa alayhi salam did in order to uncover higher realities. And what was that? When Musa goes towards the valley, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya Musa fakhla' na'alayk, فَإِنَّكَ بِالْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طَوَى. Says, Musa, remove your shoes, for you have entered into a sacred valley. Now this removal of the shoes is not just a physical act of removing the shoes, but rather it is also a metaphysical act of removing proverbial shoes, removing metaphoric shoes to enter into a sacred valley. These nights and the nights of Muharram and the nights of Shahr Ramadan are sacred valleys, are sacred nights. And so it requires an individual to do exactly as Musa did, فَخْلَعْ نَعْلَيْكَ, remove your shoes, for you are in a sacred place. But here it's not the physical shoes that are coming off an individual, but it is the shoes of pride, the shoes of anger, the shoes of arrogance, the shoes of lying, all of these different spiritual diseases that a person is constantly torn down and held down by. If you want to be able to achieve the sacredness of these nights, one has to first remove the shoes of immorality that they have placed upon themselves. And then they come to that reality. And there is only one reality in this world, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more they remove these spiritual defects from themselves, the more this reality uncovers itself for them. And so it is around this reality that I want to discuss. And I've taken a hadith from Imam al-Baqir salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, where the Imam says, لا يكون العبد عابدا لله حق عبادته, says that no servant can fulfill the right of servitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala حتى ينقطع عن الخلق كلهم, until he cuts himself off from all of existence. فحينئذ يقول, and if he does this, Allah will say to him, هذا خالص لي فيقبله بكرمه. And Allah will say, this is true sincerity for me, and will accept from him his worship through his magnanimity. So what is required to be an abd? To cut oneself off from all of existence. As simple as that. To cut oneself off from all of existence. Now what does that mean? Does that mean that I need to leave and go and live in a cave somewhere, or go and live in a masjid somewhere, or go and live in a place where I'm surrounded by holy people? Totally cutting myself off from all of existence, because that's the only way that I can achieve ubudiyah. And this theme of cutting oneself off from existence, cutting oneself off from human beings, it appears throughout the various ad'iyat and the munajat of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam as well. Take for example munajat Sha'baniyah. There are two different instances where we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this same thing. Ilahi habli kamal al-inqita'i ilayk wa anir absara qulubina bidiya'i nadariha ilayk. Says, oh Allah, allow me to cut myself off. Habli kamal al-inqita'. Cut myself off totally from everything other than you. And so that's, I cut myself off in such a way that the eyes of my heart open and they are illuminated by gazing upon your divine light. And then through those eyes I pierce through the curtains that separate for you from me, so that I may gaze upon your majesty. Or then right at the end of Munajat Sha'baniyah, Ilahi walhiqni binuri izzika al-abhaj wa akuna laka arifa wa an siwaka munharifa. So Allah, give to me the ability to submerge myself in your blissful light, in your majesty, so that I get to the point of recognizing you. وَعَنْ سِوَاكَ مُنْحَرِفًا. And I cut off, I turn away from everything other than, except for you. So you see this theme occurring throughout the hadith, throughout the dua, throughout the munajat of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, that they're saying you won't be able to achieve any maqam until you cut yourself off from all of existence. So again, the question is posed. What does that mean? That I need to go and live in a cave somewhere? I need to move away from everything and just focus solely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do I need to do tark dunya? Do I need to cut myself off from this dunya? And obviously you all know the answer. Because if that was the case, I wouldn't be sitting here, you wouldn't be sitting there, and we wouldn't be meeting each other. If that was the reality of what the Imam is trying to say. No, this kamal al-inqita', or this cutting off from existence, is cutting off from the reliance upon the existence, upon the creation of Allah. To only and only put my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not expect a single thing from another creature of God. It means to totally cut myself off from being attached to anything. Amir al-Mu'mineen has a beautiful narration, and I've mentioned it here before. He says, Zuhd, asceticism, is not that you do not own anything. You can have nice things, nice cars, nice houses, nice clothing. You can have all of these things. Zuhd is not that you do not own anything. Rather, it is that nothing owns you. So you have all of these nice things, but they do not dictate to your personality day to day. You don't start walking on air because you drive a certain type of car. You don't start feeling better about yourself because you earn a certain amount. Your sense of self-worth is not derived from that which is material. Because as is the nature of that which is material, it will deteriorate. So your sense of self-worth must be derived from something that is immaterial, something that is not physical but metaphysical. And when you attach yourself to that which is metaphysical, then there is nothing that will bring you down, no matter how much difficulty you go through in your day-to-day life. You will always persevere. You will always come out on top. You'll never end up into a downward spiral. There'll always be that beacon of light that will guide you out of any darkness. So when the Imam is saying, cut yourself off from everything, it is cut yourself off from the reliance upon anyone. Because the Imams, while saying cut yourself off, at the same time they say, doing tarkud dunya, cutting yourself from the dunya, is not allowed either. To go and live as a monk, that's haram. There's an interesting narration from Imam al-Baqir salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Says, whoever seeks the dunya in these three states shall meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment with a face brighter than the moon of the 14th. With a face brighter than the moon of the 14th. And what are those three states? The first state, the one that lives in the dunya but was needless of the people. He didn't put his hopes in the people. He didn't pin his desires and his sense of self-worth to what people thought about him. He didn't care what their opinion of him was. He was needless of them. The second state was that he spent his time in the dunya in the pursuit of comfort and ease for his family. That he went to work day in and day out in order to make the lives of his family easier. And obviously that is then caveated with, because Allah has commanded him to do so. There are some people that go out of their way to spend day and night in order to make their children's lives better, but at the same time, they'll miss their salah for that pursuit. They'll give up on their wajibat. They'll start slacking in their various ibadah because they're in the pursuit of making... That's a godless pursuit. But when one maintains that connection to Allah and then goes out to seek rizq, goes out to seek and works for the comfort and the ease of his family, that individual will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah with a face brighter than the moon of the 14th. And the third state, if one lives in the dunya while doing this, is that he spent his time helping his neighbors, being there for his society, his community. And you all know that your neighbors are not just the ones on the left or right of you, but there are 40 houses in every direction. Those are your neighbors. And so being aware of their state, doing things in order to help them, that's also a responsibility of the believer. So the Imam starts off his statement by saying none will be able to achieve the level of servitude, will never be able to achieve the ibadat of an abd until he has cut himself off from all of mankind. And when he does this, Allah will then say to him that this was truly, sincerely for me. This was true ikhlas. Ikhlas is the final stage that the awliya of Allah, the Arafah, they speak about various stages that a person has to traverse within themselves. And the final stage is the one of ikhlas, sincerity. That everything that I'm doing is truly qurbatan ila Allah. It's truly qurbatan ila Allah. When I'm standing in prayer and I'm saying, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een, then I really mean it. I'm only going to Allah. I'm only worshipping Allah. That's true sincerity. But to achieve that, there are many stages that one has to pass through. They talk about 13 stages before one enters the realm of ikhlas. And the realm of ikhlas is when one truly understands the statement in the Holy Quran of Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. At that point, the person comes to the realization that actually nothing was from me. I never had anything. Everything is coming from Allah and going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then so everything that I do, I know that I would never have had the ability. I'm only doing it because Allah has enabled me to do so. And eventually I will go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they begin to understand this statement that everything is emanating from one source and everything is going back to one source. Ultimately, the only reality in this world is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ikhlas is the final stage. And the Imam is saying you will only be able to achieve it when you cut yourself off, cut off all reliance upon the creatures, upon those makhlooq of Allah, the things that have been created by Allah. And it's very difficult. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult to enact this. And if you can do that, you'll achieve sincerity. So ultimately, the goal is what? To achieve this point where we are sincere towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But to be able to do that, I need to cut myself off. And then to be able to cut myself off from this reliance upon existence, there are various stages. And the books of akhlaq are filled with many, many different stages that one has to go through in order to be able to achieve that cutting off. But I'm going to give you 3 of those. And then the rest, inshallah, you can look up as well. The first stage in the pursuit of sincerity is one needs to inculcate within themselves humbleness. You have to realize that you are nothing. And what you have is only what Allah allows you to have. And every person that you look at, never look down upon them, but always see something within them that is better than you. Even from amongst the animal kingdom as well. We have hadith that say, learn loyalty from the dog. Don't just look at a dog just like that. Learn loyalty from it. That once it's fed by someone, it remains loyal to that person. And me, day and night, being fed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there isn't an ounce of loyalty within me. I constantly go against him, constantly sin. So the first stage is the one of humbleness. One day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Musa alayhi salam, says, Musa, next time you come to speak to me, I want you to bring something that is lower than you with you. Something that is lower than you in station. So Musa alayhi salam agrees. And soon the time comes again when he has to go and meet with Allah, do munajat, converse with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so he remembers what Allah had said. So Musa alayhi salam begins looking around. Who can I take with me? So he sees a farmer, someone that is not learned, probably can't read or write. And Musa says, I've got to be better than this guy. Let me take him with me. And then all of a sudden he begins to think. He says, no, but this individual is growing food for all of society. What am I doing? No, he's definitely better than me. So he says, I can't take him. Then he sees a mother with a child. And he says, this lady, all she's doing is raising this child, and I'm out here doing this prophetic mission, trying to guide this whole society. So I've got to be better than her. I'll take her. And then he says, wait, she's raising the next generation. I'm just preaching to them. She's with them day and night, staying awake at night, raising the next generation. He says, no, she's better than me. I can't take her. And so he goes through various people like this, and he says, I can't. There's nobody here. So he remembers that Allah said, from anything in existence, bring whatever is lower than you. So he starts looking at the animals. He sees a cow and he says, it's a cow, it's got to be worse than me. It's got to be lower than me. Let me take the cow. But then he thinks, wait, this cow gives meat. This cow gives milk. It has purpose. It feeds people. So I can't take this. So then he sees a donkey. He says, this is a donkey. I have to be better than a donkey. But he sees this donkey carrying a heavy burden on its back for its master. And Musa alayhi salam says, well, I don't carry anyone's physical burden. This donkey's got to be better than me. So he gives up. He thinks, you know what? I can't do anything here. And as he's walking back dejected, I haven't fulfilled what Allah asked from me. He sees on the ground a flea-bitten dog, just lying there, ready to die. Just as got no will to live, it's just lying there, covered in fleas. And Musa says, that's it, job done. I've got to be better than this flea-bitten dog. So he starts looking around for a rope to tie around the neck of this dog. As he's looking for this rope, a young boy comes over and he throws a bone at the dog. And the dog takes the bone in its mouth, it starts crunching it, looks towards the child like to thank it, barks in thanks and wags its tail. And the young boy seeing this begins to laugh. Musa alayhi salam says, this flea-bitten dog thanked the one that provided to him, and then at the same time did something that would make that child laugh. He made the heart of the child happy. Says, I haven't made the heart of that child happy. This dog is better than me. So he gives up. He goes back. Says, Ya Allah, you asked me to bring something that was lower to me. I looked amongst the human beings. I looked amongst the animals. Ya Allah, I couldn't find anything that was lower than me. Every single thing that I saw, it was in some way better than me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replies to him and says, Musa, had you brought something with you, I would have removed the risalat from you. The fact that I love you so much, the fact that you are dear to me, is purely because of this reason, that you do not consider yourself to be better than anything. A stage in this sincerity is that one must be humble in that pursuit. The second stage in achieving that sincerity, or the second tool in achieving this sincerity, is to be da'im al-dhikr, to be constantly in the state of dhikr, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over and over. Imam al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says about Imam al-Baqir, he says, Kana abi kathira dhikr. He says that surely my father, Imam al-Baqir, was kathiru dhikr. He would constantly be in the state of dhikr. لَقَدْ كُنْتُ أَمْشِي مَعَهُ وَإِنَّهُ لَيَذْكُرُ اللَّهِ. Whenever I would be walking with him, I would find that he was in the state of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَقَدْ كَانَ وَآكُلُ مَعَهُ الطَّعَامُ وَإِنَّهُ لَيَذْكُرُ اللَّهِ. And whenever I would sit down to eat with him, we would find that he was in the state of the dhikr and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever he would sit to talk with the people, though he would be talking, but in between, when he would stop talking, we would see that his tongue was moving and he was doing the dhikr of La ilaha illallah. So he would constantly be doing the dhikr. Every morning he would wake us up and he would tell us at the time of Fajr that take part in the dhikr of Allah. Those of us that could recite the Quran, he would tell us to recite the Quran. And those of us that could not recite the Quran, he would tell us to do the dhikr حتى تطلع الشمس, until the rising of the sun. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam was da'im of dhikr, was constantly in this state of dhikr. And when you begin to make a dhikr, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever it may be, Allahu Akbar, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, or salawat constantly, when you begin to make this part of your life, there are certain effects that will occur straight away. Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. He says, Inna Allah subhanahu ja'ala dhikra jala'an lil qulub. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made dhikr to do a number of things. The first thing is jala'an lil qulub. It is a polishing of the heart. Jala is used in terms of a sword. When a sword has become rusty, and the method of cleaning the rust off a piece of metal, they refer to that in the Arabic language as jalla. He says that the dhikr is jala'an lil qulub. It is a polishing, it is a removal of the rust upon your spiritual heart. It is what will connect you with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That heart is your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards the unseen. Al-qalbu yataraddadu bayna al-mulki wal-malakut. I've said this here before, that the heart is that revolving door between the mulk, between the dunya and the malakut, that which is unseen. And so if that heart is rusted, then the connection is severed. And so he says, dhikr is jala'an lil qulub. It will polish your heart. وَتُبْصِرُ بِهِ بَعْدَ الْعَشْوَةِ. And it is sight. It is to give you sight after you have been blind to reality. It will give you hearing after being deaf. It will bring peace to you after being belligerent to hostile. Those that are always angry, those that are always looking at life as in a negative way, if they take part in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it brings a peace to their heart. So the second stage in reaching that level of sincerity is to be da'im of dhikr. If I'm constantly remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I'm constantly remembering my responsibilities to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third and final way in the pursuit of sincerity is that one must submit to the will of the hujjah of Allah. For the hujjah of Allah is your door to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without submission to the hujjah, without submission to the wali, without submission to the imam, you will never be able to achieve proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will never be able to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this famous line is the Ayyam of Hajj Sayyid al-Shahadat, as he's leaving Mecca, he makes this famous statement. He says to the people, he says, those of you that have من كان باذلا فينا محجتا وموطنا على لقاء الله فليرحل معنا فإني راهل مصبحا إن شاء الله. He says that those of you that have made a intention to spend your blood in our way and have that firm intention to meet with Allah. Where is he? Outside of Mecca. Everyone is going towards the Kaaba. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. For what? Liqa Allah. Essentially to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But here Imam al-Husaini is saying, if you want to liqa Allah, you've made the firm intention to meet with God, فَلْيَرْحَلْ مَعْنَا فَإِنِّي رَاحِلٌ مُصْبِحًا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ. Then come with me, for I am leaving in the morning. I'm leaving the Kaaba. So if you want to meet with God, then you come with me. The Hujjah of Allah is the doorway to submit in totality to the will of the Hujjah. This is what will separate you from all the others. You connect yourself with the Hujjah of Allah and watch how the Hujjah of Allah raises you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes you won't understand what it is that your Imam wants from you. Why? But yours is not to question why. It is just to submit. Jabir al-Ju'fi, you all know the name. He is from amongst the Ashab al-Sir of Imam al-Baqir. The Ashab, you know, the Ashab, the companions of the Imam were of various categories. The highest category of companion were the Ashab al-Sir, the companions of the secrets, where the Imams would reveal to them realities of their own imamats, their own wilayat, realities of existence in the world. Jabir al-Ju'fi is one of those ashab. Not only that, he is the narrator of hadith, and 60,000 of them are the hadith of asrar, are the hadith of secrets. Forget all of the general ahadith, but 60,000 of them that he narrates are of the asrar, of the secrets that the Imam told him about. Needless to say, Jabir al-Ju'fi is a heavyweight companion of the Imam. One day, he receives a letter from Imam al-Baqir. It says, Jabir, I want you to take a stick, place it between your legs, and ride around the streets amongst the children like you're riding a horse. Jabir al-Ju'fi takes a stick, puts it between his legs, starts riding around the streets, pretending it's a horse. What would I do if my Imam had asked me at that time? If I received this command from my Imam, I'd be like, what? I need to find myself a new Imam. But Jabir al-Ju'fi, I told you, was no ordinary companion. He understood. So Jabir, place this stick between your legs, ride around the streets like it's a horse, play amongst the children. And he's not like Jabir is young either. He's an old man by this point. But he does it. What is hidden behind the command of the Imam? It is this. The Khalifa had written to the governor and had said, go to Jabir al-Ju'fi and say to him that he must become a judge for our court. If he refuses, cut off his head. When this governor comes to Jabir al-Ju'fi's house and finds Jabir riding around on a stick pretending it's a horse, He writes back to the Khalifa, he says, listen, Jabir has fallen out of the tree somewhere. He can't be a judge. He has totally lost it. And it will be of no use to kill him because he's fully mad. So the Khalifa says, okay, leave him, let him be. The point is, Jabir al-Ju'fi submitted to the Imam. He knew whatever his Imam is telling him to do, there are no two ways about it. It is only in his benefit. It doesn't matter what the people say. It doesn't matter what the people think. As long as the Imam is happy, as long as the Imam is satisfied, that's all that matters. So to be able to achieve sincerity, it is the highest realm. Stage one is to be able to cut myself off from people, from existence, from my need of them, from my reliance upon them. And this is that reality that Imam al-Baqir is passing to us. And one other thing that Imam al-Baqir passed to his Shi'as was the importance of the Aza of Sayyid al-Shahadat. The importance of the ziyarah of Imam al-Husaini in Karbala. The relaying and the retelling of the events of Karbala, the vast majority of our ahadith that come from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam come from Imam al-Baqir. And so I often think when it comes to the istishhad of Imam al-Baqir, yes, he was given poison by Hisham al-Mal'un. Yes, the Imam died in pain and in a state of madlumiyah. But was that really the greatest musibah of the Imam? Was that really the thing that broke the heart of the Imam? No, Karbala was that place. Sham was that place. He says, I was 5 years old and some months in Karbala. And with my own eyes, I saw what befell Ahlul Bayt. He says, I saw with my own eyes as Ali Asghar was breathing his last few breaths out of thirst. And I saw my aunt Zainab trying to fan the child with a small shirt. He says, a young girl came, said, oh auntie, why don't you take my brother to the tents of the children of Aqil? Maybe there are some droplets of water left in their bags. Maybe there may be enough for him. And so Zainab alayha salam, knowing the reality that there is no more water left, but not to break the heart of the children, she takes Ali Asghar and she makes her way to the tents of the children of Aqil. Imam al-Baqir says that when she entered into that tent, 17 children from Ali Aqil surrounded her, all of them with this hope that if Zainab alayha salam finds some water for Ali Asghar, maybe there will be some left over for us to drink. Imam al-Baqir says, I witnessed this with my own eyes. He says, I witnessed the events of Asra Ashur when the head of Abi Abdullah was raised on a spear. I saw my aunt Zainab run to Talla Zainabiyah. I saw men mount upon horses and ride towards the Qatlaga. I saw my aunties crying, praying, hoping that the men were not doing what they thought they were doing. As they trampled the body of Imam al-Hussein, they came back out of the Qatlaga and again back down, Zainab again wailing. And then he says, I saw them turn towards towards the banks of the Furat, and there was no one on the banks of the Furat but my uncle Abbas, and then they trampled the body of Abbas. He says, I saw with my own eyes that they took the head of Imam al-Husayn and they tried to wash it in the Furat. No matter how much they washed the head of Abi Abdullah, he says, I saw the lips of Imam al-Husayn still remained dry as a sign of his thirst. Imam al-Baqir his whole life remembered the events of Karbala. When it came to his burial, when it came to his janazah, they say the Shias of Medina lined the house from Imam al-Baqir's house, lined the streets from the house until Baqir, and in their hands they held date palms so that the sun would not hit the body of the Imam, meaning the Imam was given ghusl in shade, was given kafan in shade, was taken and buried while under the shade. And as the body of the Imam lay there ready to be buried, one of the Shias threw himself on the body of the Imam crying. The others grabbed him. He said, look, it may be a disrespect upon the body of the Imam. Don't throw yourself on the body like this. The pain that hurt the heart of Imam al-Baqir was this, that he himself says, by the time the death of Abi Abdullah came, there was nowhere on his body where there was not a wound inflicted upon him. But they carried on attacking him, and upon the wounds that they had already inflicted, they would strike their swords and their spears. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين.
Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain, Ya Husain. हाय ज़हरा के गुलिस्तां में ख़िज़ा छाई है, हाय ज़हरा के गुलिस्तां में ख़िज़ा छाई है, हाय ज़हरा के गुलिस्तां छाई है, हाय ज़हरा के गुलिस्तां छाई है। ज़हर से मारा है बाकिर को ज़ालिम तूने, ज़हर से मारा है बाकिर को ज़ालिम तूने, सर खुले रोते हैं सादिक मेरे बाबा न रहे, हाय ज़हरा के गुलिस्तां में ख़िज़ा छाई है, हाय ज़हरा आई है, जिनकी तत्हीर पे शाहिद है ज़ुबाने कुरान, जिनकी तत्हीर पे शाहिद है ज़ुबाने कुर्बान, हाय वो पर्दनशी शाम के बाज़ारों में, हाय ज़हरा چھائی ہے ہائے زہرا کے گلستان میں چھائی ہے قید خانے اس سینے سے لگائے رہنا قید خانے اس سینے سے لگائے رہنا رہ گئی مر کے سکینہ تیرے دیواروں میں ہائے زہرا میں خزاں چھائی ہے گلستان ہے ماتم کی صداؤں سے زمانے کو ہلا دو ماتم کی صداؤں سے زمانے کو ہلا دو ماتم کی صدا نے کو ہلا دو ماتم کی صدا کو ہلا دو پھر دہر میں شبیر کا پھر دہر میں شبیر کا پیغام سنا دو ماتم کی صدا ہلا دو ماتم ہلا دو ماتم کی ہلا دو دیر ہو گئی صغرا تیرا قاصد نہیں آیا دیر ہو گئی صغرا تیرا قاصد نہیں آیا روزے پہ پیمبر کے روزے پہ پیمبر کے چراغوں کو بجھا دو ماتم کی ماتم کے کو ہلا دو ماتم دربار ستمگر میں چلی ثانی زہرا دربار ستمگر میں چلی ثانی زہرا سوئے ہوئے بیمار کی سوئے ہوئے بیمار کی زنجیر ہلا دو ماتم کی صدا آنے کو ہلا دو نے کو ہلا دو ماتم تو شیخ کہتے تھے اکبر جو چلے رن میں مرنے شیخ کہتے تھے اکبر جو چلے مرنے کو رن میں اس چاند کو واللیل کی اس چاند کو واللیل کی بدلی میں چھپا دو ماتم کی دو ماتم کی سہت دو ماتم روئے گی بہت شام کے زندہ میں سکینہ روئے گی بہت شام کے زندہ میں سکینہ معصوم کو اندازے یتیمی کے سکھا دو ماتم کے زمان دو ماتم کی صداؤں کو ہلا دو ماتم ہلا دو اکثر یہ صدا آتی ہے کربل کی زمین سے اکثر یہ صدا آتی ہے کربل کی زمین سے آزاد ہو باطل کی حکومت کو مٹا دو ماتم کی کو ہلا دو ماتم کی صداؤں دو پھر دہر میں شبیر کا پیغام سنا دو ماتم کی صداؤں سے زمانے کو ہلا دو ماتم کی صداؤں سے یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین سورة المبارکۃ الفاتحہ
توجہ زیارہ السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ السلام علیک یا نبی اللہ السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین وابن سید الوسیین السلام علیک یا حسن المجتبى السلام علیک یا ابا عبد اللہ الحسین وعلى 9 المعصومین من ذریتک علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي باقر علم النبيين وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي التقي الجواد وعلي بن محمد النقي والحسن بن علي الأصقري والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته اللهم صل على محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم
ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاردا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزق دوءا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.